Welcome back, everyone, to the A.D.D. show, where we're not always right, but we're never wrong. As always, I'm Mark.
And I'm Hans. And happy Thanksgiving to all of you guys. We have two games today that aren't exciting pretty much at all. And we have Houston traveling to Detroit and Washington coming to Dallas. We have a lot of college football games to get to, and I'm also not going to talk about any of them because there's like 190 college football games this weekend. We have Nate with us again today. And Mark, how are you?
I'm good. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving. Nate, how you doing today?
Doing well, guys. Happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for having me again.
Oh, not a problem. I want to disagree right away with Christian when he said there's two games that don't matter. Washington-Dallas matters.
Well, I know they matter, but I was saying to the average person, they're not very exciting games.
If you're a football fan, though, you're going to pay attention to those. To that game.
A lot of people pretend to be football fans, and they're really not.
Yeah, but since I was a kid, it's been the Macy's Day Parade and football. Mm-hmm. Detroit Lions, Dallas Cowboys. Ever since I was a little kid.
Yeah.
I love Thanksgiving. I don't care who the teams are. I know it's Houston versus Detroit, and that's on paper it's an awful game, but I'm just excited to watch it. It's a tradition for me.
Personally, for me, we just talked about this before we went on, and I'm sure Nate would probably agree. So I think that the petition should be made that Lions and Dallas, like always have the two games. Mm-hmm. But I think the Lions should always have to play somebody else in their division. I think it should be the Packers or the Vikings, something like that. Mm-hmm. Dallas should always have to play the Eagles or Washington football team. And the night game should be like what we originally had, a big rivalry game that has nothing to do with the other two teams, but like Steelers, Ravens, or Miami and Miami and New England, or just something like that. Sorry, It's early. We're recording way earlier than normal, so I was really looking forward to that Steelers-Ravens game. That was going to be a good game.
Yeah, it was. And going into that, today's topics for the show are going to be who wins the NFC East. We're going to talk about a little something different too. Hall of Fame class, who's in? The semifinalist list came out, and we're going to discuss that. We're going to discuss the playoff picture, AFC and NFC playoff picture and predictions. And then we're going to get into, right away, is there reasons to worry in Baltimore and Tampa? If so, why? So, Nate, right off the bat, let's do Tampa first. Are you worried about their playoff chances or their long-term chances, since some people pick them for the Super Bowl?
I don't think that they're in a spot to miss the playoffs. I think Arians is too good a coach. You have Tom Brady. You have all the talent. I think that the playoffs I'm going to put money down that they're going to make the playoffs. But as far as their division, I don't know that they can catch the Saints. The Saints have beat them twice. And if you're talking about all that talent that I think is going to make them a playoff team, it's not really showing up on a week-in, week-out basis for Tampa. And I don't know what's not gelling for some of these players, but it's like too many mouths to feed, and it's almost overwhelming Tom Brady is what it looks like.
Go ahead, Christian.
Yeah, for me, mine's very similar to what he just said. It's excuse me. I don't personally know what the issue is. I've watched multiple of their games. I don't know if it's Tom Brady took a step back. I don't know if Arians doesn't have them prepared. They have a lot of talent, and I'm just not seeing it coming together like we thought. Like, we were expecting this to be a firepower of a team. You added Antonio Brown, I get it, halfway through the year. Then you added Fournette, and I'm like, dude, you have the best defense in the league, probably close to the Ravens and Ravens and Steelers, but it's just something seems broken. I don't know how to explain it, and I haven't put my finger on it yet. You have a top 5, top 10 wide receiver in the league every week who's getting nothing done. Mm-hmm. Mike Evans not being targeted. You're focusing on one wide receiver who is balling in Godwin, but something doesn't feel right, and I don't know who to blame. I haven't figured it out yet, but I think they'll make the playoffs. Right now, they're the they're the 6th seed right now, so they'll be making it in. And the only team behind them is the Cardinals, and every team after the Cardinals is under 500. Mm-hmm. So, to me, the NFC playoffs is pretty much locked where it is now. I don't see a lot of it changing much, besides who's already in, moving around.
Yeah, moving around in
so
I think the top 7.
I think the Bucs will get in, but according to what I'm looking at, they're going to be playing. If it all stood right now, they're going to be playing the Packers. And that's a tough matchup for them. I know they're to beat the Packers once, but I just need them to, and they could turn it on in the playoffs. You know how they are, but right now, just something's a little off, and I don't know what it is. Maybe you do, but
I put no-ish. There's, I don't think, again, I'm gonna completely agree that they make the playoffs. Mm-hmm. But here's what I wrote down: coaching and continuity. All right, Bruce Arians, I feel, is being arrogant, and he's saying, you know what? This is the game plan. You are going to throw it deep, and you're going to throw it deep 10 times a game. And
That's
I don't
not really
care.
Brady, though.
Right. And that's why, like, I think he's too stubborn and arrogant. This is my team. You came here. This is what we're going to do. Brady's not a deep ball thrower. Brady, one season, was a deep ball thrower. And even after that, like, even though he had Moss for, I believe, 3 seasons, only 1 season was he a deep ball thrower.
Deep for Brady is 30 yards to Edelman in the middle. That's deep for Brady.
You know, so you have a bunch of deep balls. Like, the reason why they lost that game the other night was because he was throwing too many deep balls. Brady is at his best when he picks you apart, boom,
Marches
boom,
down the
boom,
field.
marches down the field. And you have the squad to do that, but they're not doing it. You know, Mike Evans, yes, you can hit him for a 20-yard out, 30 yards downfield. But Godwin and Brown are possession wide receivers that love to run across the middle, that love to, do that, what we like to call, because he played with them for so many years, the Edelman route or the Wes Walker route.
The slot route. That's what we like to call it. Yep.
And Ronald Jones and Fournette can both catch the ball out of the backfield, but they don't.
Yep.
They don't run the ball nearly enough.
No.
Ronald Jones could average close to 100 yards a game if you give him the ball 20 times a game.
Yeah.
And they're just not doing it. And so I'm blaming it on coaching. I really am, because I think Arians is a good coach, but I think he's just being too stubborn and saying, you know what, Brady, you're going to do it my way.
But do you think it's a lot because he has Brady and all these dudes that he just thinks that he's got the best team, and he's like, we're going to win no matter what I decide to put on the field? Like an arrogance kind of thing. Like,
well, yeah, but also I know Jameis isn't a very good, accurate quarterback, but how many of those 30 interceptions were deep balls last year?
They did quite a bit. They did a thing on that, and it was like more than half of his interceptions.
Right. So I'm thinking, like, you know what? You throw 30, 50 deep balls in 3 games, and 10 of them are intercepted. Pull it back a little. Like, give the man a chance to succeed.
If you throw interceptions in the short 15-yard routes, you throw interceptions short, that tells you you're not a very good quality quarterback.
Right.
I'm not saying Jameis isn't, but a lot of quarterbacks throw interceptions deep. So do what
So
Brady does best. We saw him for 20 years in New England, not play how he is here.
So I think they figure it out. I'm a little hesitant because my prediction was Super Bowl. They were going to make it to the Super Bowl against Kansas City. So that was my prediction. So that's why I'm saying no-ish on reasons to worry. I don't know if they need to catch fire in order for me to believe they can make it to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, this was Super Bowl or bust, and what I'm seeing with the route they're going to have to take to get there, I don't even know if they make it to the NFC Championship game.
Now Baltimore, on the other hand.
Unless, Nate, did you have anything else to say about Tampa?
Oh.
Well, I have a question.
Yes.
So if you're Tom Brady and you're looking at your stats, your last 19 deep balls, you're 0 of 19, 3 interceptions. Why are you not taking that to your coach? Like, Tom Brady is Tom Brady. I know that you have the hierarchy of, the coach, the offensive coordinator, like all of that. But why are you not stepping up as the veteran who's been there, done it, who has more Super Bowl wins than anybody else? Why aren't you pushing back is my question.
When has he ever? Think about it. Brady's
used to go at it though.
Right. Brady's a leader, and he did go at it with McDaniels, but you never saw him go at it with Belichick. And I agree with you, Nate. You got to say, hey, this isn't. You want continuity. Like, that's where I think the continuity is. They've played enough games together where you know where they want the ball, but if you can't get them the ball, you've got to speak up. You've got to say, hey.
I'm gonna agree with you guys. I'm gonna change it to a different sport real fast because it made me think of this. So, Tom Brady at times can remind somebody of a LeBron James, right? To the point where they know what's happening on their court. Tom Brady knows what's happening on his field. We're not saying Arians isn't a good coach, and I'm not saying, oh, dude, I forgot the coach of the Lakers now. But what I'm saying is, when it comes to Brady should be like, look, Arians, I've been doing this a while as a quarterback, and I've won rings. Let me help you kind of create a plan for what works best for me. It's kind of like LeBron coming in like, look, I know what to do here. Like, I need to be the coach. We just got to have somebody in that chair. But honestly, this is my game. And that's what Brady should. And I'm not saying Brady needs to be that butthole of a guy, but come and say, Arians, like, this isn't working. This deep ball stuff's not working. That's not me. You got to let me do me. And I think they're going to have a lot more success.
Well, what Arians said this week also is he said the deep ball works in practice. He's throwing a pretty ball in practice, but it's not, it's not going to the game And I just think you have to change the game plan.
Yeah.
You have to. It's late in the season. You're a 43-year-old quarterback. I know it's still warm in Tampa, but you've got to, really figure this out and figure it out fast because, like Nate said, you're not winning the division. Even if you tie, you're not winning the division. You got your ass beat twice by the Saints.
Yep.
So,
and we thought they were going to beat the Saints both times.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we both picked them both times to beat the Saints, and we were wrong.
Yep. So to transition into Baltimore, is there reasons to worry? Yes. Yes, there is. They're hurt on defense, so they can't stop anybody. Their QB is not very good at all. And the coaching staff is failing this team. So it's almost an all-around falling apart for this team. Injuries, and then you have coaching not changing, and then you have a QB that is not capable of getting the job done. I watched that whole game. I don't know. I had to watch the whole game. I wasn't able to watch the Redskins because I'm on the Eastern Shore, so we get Baltimore.
Yeah.
And I watched that whole game, and he floats every single ball. His balls are high all the time. That ball that he threw to Andrews where they scored a deep touchdown, he threw it behind him. Andrews had to readjust and go and make a catch. But every single time, every clutch play, every time somebody's wide open, he throws it over their head. He lobs the ball. He's not. And the only time he looked good throwing the ball was when Dez would stand at the line of scrimmage and he'd just gun it to him, and Dez would run for 5 yards before he was tackled because everybody played 10, 15 yards off of Dez Bryant in that game. And Romo kept saying, you want to know something? Throw him the ball every time until they come up to the line of scrimmage. Romo was just flabbergasted that they did not throw him the ball every time because they were 15 yards off him every single snap. Yep. But he missed Andrews on a crucial third down. Andrews had nobody near him, and he threw it over his head. And he wasn't even being rushed. It's like he's trying to, lob it into a wastebasket from,
You're, sitting on your bed in high school and you're crumbling up paper shooting it.
And he's not confident running the ball. Mm-hmm. It's like this is the scenario I had in my head driving to work the other day. He is playing like he is scared to get hurt because he believed the hype that he was the next $40 million man. And he's just awful. He is awful. And if Baltimore pays him money, they are going to be mediocre for years. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I'm way off. I don't know if I'm too harsh, Nate. I don't know if you disagree or.
I mean, I think you're being a little harsh on Lamar. Do I think that last year's MVP was a fluke? No. Do I think that Lamar is built to be a perennial top 5 quarterback in the league? No. He's got a play style that we've seen it in the NFL before. If you're not Cam Newton or Michael Vick, it tends to not work. You have to be this absolute freak athlete. I think that Lamar is a freak athlete, but I also don't think that they're using his abilities to best suit them. I just feel like they're wasting so much talent on that team. I know that they have injuries, and they're really missing Marshall Yanda in the run game. I mean, who would have thought that an offensive guard to make that big of a difference for a team?
And now they don't have Stanley
they
either.
Can't run
Staley.
The ball to
Yeah.
And Justin Tucker is the best thing on that team, and he can't win you every game.
Right.
I think watching them just completely dismantle against Tennessee is really eye-opening. And I think that now that the game's moved and all these Steelers players are really pissed off and they're tweeting about it, I think Pittsburgh is going to wipe the floor with them on Sunday. And I think this is going to be a year where people ask, is this the beginning of the end, or was this just a bad year?
Okay.
And I think it's going to come down to coaching more than anything.
So you think Harbaugh loses his job before and then they'd rather extend Jackson?
I don't know that they would do that per se, because Harbaugh's been there so long. He's had so much success. I think they would do more of fire an offensive coordinator or try to do something. They're going to try to make Jackson work.
Okay.
I mean, you have to. He's an MVP. He's on a rookie contract. They have to try to make him work. I don't think that they would choose Harbaugh or choose Jackson over Harbaugh, but don't know. That Baltimore is hemorrhaging right now, and it's make or break every week for them, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I wrote down one of the things I noticed is you can't have your leading rusher be your leading passer. It hasn't worked. It never works. I looked back in multiple seasons. Michael Vick had some seasons. Cam Newton had some seasons. Even Randall Cunningham had a season like that. And you can't be the leading rusher and the leading passer, right? And you can't also have 3 games in a row where your top wide receiver target gets no targets. What are you doing on offense? So this is what I had written down. The style of play that Lamar plays with is not like Cam. Okay, he's completely different. Cam actually did throw the ball a little bit, right? And actually had some accuracy to it when it was within 20 yards. Lamar's play style sells tickets but doesn't fill trophy cases. That's the difference here. Ravens fans love him because he puts on a show. It's almost like watching the original when Steph Curry first started being Steph Curry. It sells tickets. I understand they won championships, but this is different. I don't see this team having a championship caliber play style. And on top of that, I was talking to my therapist I work with at work, huge Ravens fan. He says, Lamar's got to figure this out. And I said, what do you mean? He's like, because I don't want to extend him at the way he's playing now. I was like, do you think he's your problem or do you think it's hardball? I asked him the same question. He said, I think Lamar's the problem because you cannot get the ball out. So every defense knows that. If he doesn't change his style, work with a Brady and a Russell together, he doesn't figure it out. He's like, I want a quarterback like Lamar. He said, I want Lamar, but I want him to play like Kyler Murray. Or I want him to play like Russell Wilson. Quarterbacks who run when they need to, but
you're asking him to do something he can't do.
I know that, but that's the thing. That's what he told me. He's like, but that's not Lamar. And I don't think Lamar's play style is going to put a championship in our trophy case because he's just going to get exposed in the playoffs. His record against bad teams is astronomically higher than Lamar's record against playoff winning teams. Right. He can't beat good teams. He's Dak Prescott.
Yeah. Now, I heard something on the radio this week, which it actually shocked me because I've talked about listening to 105.7 The Fan all the time and how aggravating they are sometimes. But I'm going to give this man credit, Vinny Serrano. All right, he's been in around the NFL forever. He was a scout and he was I think he was a GM for the San Francisco 49ers for years. And he said this. He said Lamar holds the ball so long. He holds the ball so long that wide receivers become covered. And he throws the ball so late that then it's not, he holds it so long. So the wide receivers are wide open. He hesitates, holds it too long, and then he throws it, and then they're covered.
He should be throwing it as soon as they plant and cut their feet and turn. It should already be in the air.
And he's holding it too long. Like he even said, the throw to Andrews, that touchdown pass that everybody said was a beautiful pass. He held it too long. Andrews was open forever, and he almost threw him to where the guy caught up to him. Nate, is that anything you see? I know you love paying attention to quarterbacks, young quarterbacks too, but is that something you see, or do you think he has yips?
I think so. One of the things that I watched that game last week because for some reason I live, near DC and can't get to Washington football team games, so I had to watch it on my phone. I had the Baltimore game on my big TV. So I'm watching the game, and one of my things, I think Hollywood Brown got way overhyped because he was very fast. He has awful route running ability. He puts his hand up running down the field thinking that he's open when he's got a safety over top. I don't think he understands coverages,
Right.
Like your good wide receivers like Antonio Brown, Chris Godwin, they find the open hole. Like Travis Kelce did this against the Raiders on that last drive twice. He found the hole in the soft zone and sat. And that's what Tyreek Hill does. I think that they have a lot of talent, but I think no one's coaching these players. They got so overhyped last year. I think that Lamar has talent, but he's missing wide open wide receivers. I mean, I just think that it's an all-around team effort. I don't think it's just Lamar missing them. I just think that the wide receivers and tight ends, like Mark Andrews, they don't run. They just take plays off or something. I don't know. They're frustrating to watch. And
I want to agree with Nate on one quick thing, and he said a good point there. When me and Mark talk about it, because we do have to be spoon-fed the Ravens here on the Eastern Shore. It's not that Lamar, I think, is the problem, because I don't think he is. I think it's multiple people are the problem. And I think the only way you're willing to win, excuse me, and like I said, the only way you're willing to win is you have to just open the field up a little bit. You got to open the playbook up a little bit and quit being so one-dimensional, right? And this is what I talked to my therapist with. I told you. I talked to him about the same situation. He said, why do you think we drafted Lamar? Why do you think we moved on from Flacco? I was like, well, you had the dead-ranked last offensive line when you had Flacco as last year. So Flacco got abused. So you bring in a running quarterback because you can have a bad O-line with a running quarterback. It's worked for years. Flacco could have still paid off if they would have brought a lineman in. So it's almost like they went to this style of Lamar, but now they're not playing for Lamar. Does that make sense? If you're going to keep Lamar and you want him long-term and the way he plays, you have to build this team around him, get him wide receivers that work with him, short route wide receivers. You don't need deep threats because he can't throw it deep. He lofts them too much. So I just think it's wide receiver coach, it's quarterbacks coach. I think just all around general, something's not clicking. And somebody's off on their game. And it makes it look like it's Lamar, but it's probably more than just him.
Okay. We're going to transition here to it's because we'll talk about the AFC and NFC playoff picture. And the one thing I'm going to say is the reason why this is a good transition is I think the Baltimore's outside looking in at the end of the season. I do not think they make the playoffs.
As of right now, they're not in the playoffs.
Right. But I don't think they make a run, and I don't think they make the playoffs. I think Las Vegas, Cleveland, you've got who else you got in there? Indy. I think all those teams are Miami. I think all those teams are better. Now I do also think Miami's going to be on the outside looking in. But I think that I think that there's just it's different from the NFC because the bottom of the AFC is so tight and jammed that it's going to come down to tiebreakers.
For me, I think the only team in the NFC that changes in the playoffs right now is who wins the NFC East. I think that's the only change on that side. But like you said with the AFC, there's so many still teams fighting for that final spots. And right now the Ravens are the outside looking in.
Right. 9 teams in the AFC that are 7. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams that are 6-4 or 7-3. And then you have 9-1 and 10-0. So I think the top is going to be, obviously Pittsburgh and the Chiefs.
Then you have Bills at 3, Colts at 4, Titans, Browns, Raiders. That's your playoff teams right now. And it's like same thing with the Ravens is almost by default. You're in third now. You're in third in your division. And you're not getting 3 teams. So unless the Browns fall apart or the Browns have a couple yips and the Ravens win a couple games. The Ravens are outside looking in.
Yeah. So I think the top of the AFC, I think Buffalo does pull out the East.
Yeah.
It's going to be a battle between Indianapolis and Tennessee.
But I still think they both get in.
No, but they both get in, but who wins the division? I think that's a coin toss. Indianapolis is starting to play really well. But Pittsburgh, KC, 1 and 2. And I think those two teams, I think Pittsburgh has to win out to get the number 1 seed. Because I think KC is going to win out.
KC's more consistent. I think they're going to win out too.
And
they got a big game this weekend, so we'll have to see.
Yeah, it's a big game, but I trust KC. Yeah. But Pittsburgh knows they can't really technically lose 1 or 2 games and think they're going to have the number 1 seed.
Yeah.
So I think the AFC is the battle is going to be at the bottom where and
it's a stacked AFC.
In the NFC.
Well, you want to let Nate say anything real quick? Didn't.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. You were moving on to the NFC.
Well, yeah, but I was just going to say my opinion on the playoffs and then, let you guys go. So,
No, you're good. I'm sorry. My bad.
It's all right. It's Chicago's 5-5, Minnesota's 4-6, Detroit's 4-6, San Francisco's 4-6, Carolina's 4-7. Minnesota's a game out of the playoffs. That loss to Dallas is going to kill them. I think Arizona and Tampa Bay are technically the teams that you have to look at that are in trouble.
Yeah.
But nobody else is. God, it's just so sad because it says.
Other than Minnesota, who's the next closest team that can get to 7th seed?
Minnesota.
Other than Minnesota.
Oh, Chicago 5-5.
So that's what I'm saying. Every team after them is 500 or below. Right. So they need to make up some ground.
So the funny thing is this is the top of the NFC. Okay, you got New Orleans at 8-2. The Rams at 7-3, Green Bay at 7-3, and then you have the Eagles at 3-6-1.
I know, and the only reason they're there is because of the tie.
Right. So it's the NFC East has a worse record than Chicago, Minnesota, Detroit, and San Francisco, and one of those teams is going to make the playoffs.
This is why I lobbied for the NFC East not being able to get in. If your record's that bad, I'm sorry. I don't think even if Dallas was there, if you can't win at least 7-9, 8-8 in your division, and there's this many other good teams. Let them in.
Yep.
Take the year off.
It's sad because I really think the top 7 is going to stay this top 7. I don't think you're going to have much difference in the NFC, where the AFC is going to be exciting till the end. So that's my take on the playoffs. My predictions are the NFC stays the same, the top 7, and then you have in the AFC. I have the 7 teams that are in it right now where Baltimore and Miami are on the outside looking in. I have Las Vegas getting in, Cleveland getting in, Tennessee, Indianapolis, Buffalo, KC, and Pitt.
I'll let Nate go.
So I'm going to do the NFC first, just because I agree with you, Mark. I think that there's less disparity at the bottom of the NFC playoff picture. I mean, I said it earlier. I don't think Tampa Bay is going to move up to that upper tier. They're going to be a wild card team, and they're not going to catch New Orleans, especially after losing to them twice. And I mean, the NFC East, which I know we're going to talk about later, I don't even. There's not words that can explain how I feel about the NFC East right now. Like, they just every week you're just blown away and flabbergasted at something new. You know, the fact that Dallas goes in and beats the hottest team in the NFL, it looked like, over the last month. And Dallas goes toe-to-toe. Dalton looks great. Pollard looks good. They look like a completely different team. I mean, and then who knows what team you're going to get on Thursday. It's like these teams have no identity. They just flip-flop back and forth for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
So frustrating. But I think that the NFC is going to pretty much stay as is. On the AFC side of things, this is where it gets interesting because everybody was riding Miami saying that they're hot. You know, they're the team that's going to make the playoffs. They're going to make the push. You know, the rebuild is going better than expected. And then they had one bad game. Tua gets hit, 1,300 times and gets benched. And everybody's like, oh, now they're on the outside looking in. I think there's still a lot of talent. Flores is a good coach. He's going to get these guys ready. I think Miami is the team that I personally want to see in the playoffs, and I think that they have the opportunity to do it based on their remaining schedule. There are some big games that they have. But if they win those big games, they can position themselves really nicely. And I'm sorry, I still just don't believe Cleveland. They're winning ugly, but Dak Prescott still has more passing yards than Baker Mayfield, and we're on week 12 or 11 or whatever we're at. It's just they're so fraudulent. I just don't understand that team and how they keep winning. I mean, if they didn't have to play the NFC East, what would their record be?
Yeah.
Right. Now,
and that's the same thing with the Steelers, too.
Can I say something on Cleveland real fast? And this is going to shock you guys, but they're old school football.
Oh, yeah.
They're playing, we're going to run the ball.
And playing the trenches on defense.
I mean, the last 2 games, Hunt and Chubb, last 2 games combined for 40 carries. That is, and one of them was Chubb's have been over 100 yards each game. Hunt was over 100 yards, and then I don't think he was close to 100 yards, but he had a touchdown. They're winning by old school football. So if you twisted my arm and said, who do I believe in more, Miami, Baltimore, or Cleveland? At this point, Cleveland has more of an identity, so I feel Cleveland maintains it. And yes, playing the NFC East really does help.
I mean, I think the Steelers are great at 10-0 or whatever they are, but they've had like the third easiest schedule all year still. So they benefit by playing the NFC East, and that's another thing. They Jets and those type of teams.
Here's my problem with Cleveland, right? So I think that we're one more home game away from saying that Cleveland shouldn't be allowed to host any more NFL games because the weather is just too wacky. I mean, their last 3 games, they played the Raiders and 50-mile-an-hour wind. I mean, everybody saw that attempted field goal that got just swept away. Mm-hmm. So they had to run the ball. They couldn't throw the ball. Then they play Houston. Windy as all get out. Had to run the ball, couldn't throw the ball. And then they play Philly in a torrential downpour with, again, 15-mile-an-hour winds. So I'm not trying to, make excuses because you got – a win's a win in the NFL, and you've got to get them any way you can. But I cannot believe in Baker Mayfield, honestly, and Cleveland right now. I just can't.
Yeah, well, let's see what happens. It's sort of like the Ravens last year, okay, where you are running the ball, but let's see what happens when they make you throw it.
Yep.
And when you fall behind,
there's going to be the team to slow down Kareem Hunt and Chubb. There's going to be a little bit. And
so I agree with it. Like, I believe they'll make the playoffs. I don't think they'll make any noise in the playoffs. I don't know if that makes any sense.
But, no, it does. That's the Ravens last 2 years. It makes sense.
So,
but to round out the AFC, I think I like Indianapolis more than Tennessee. This will be a big game this week to find out who's going to take that division when they play each other again. Also, even the NFL does that. You play two division opponents, or the same division opponent in 3 weeks. You play them 1 week and then have another game to play them. It's stupid scheduling.
It should be beginning of the year and end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly what I think. But I think that Pittsburgh, I'm worried about them burning out. And I think that because Kansas City is right behind them with their foot on the gas, and Pittsburgh wants to be that number 1 seed, so they get the bye, I'm worried that Pittsburgh's going to burn themselves out. I mean, they're playing really good, but they don't have a run game. Big Ben is just throwing the ball 45 times a game. Is that really what you want Big Ben to be doing? I mean, it's working right now, but how fatigued is he going to be come January?
Mm-hmm.
And I think Kansas City's legit. I don't see them losing the game. So I'm going to say that the AFC playoff picture, it's going to be, I'm going to say Cleveland out and Miami in. Baltimore will be on the outside looking in. And a team I would not want to play is Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've got Kansas City figured out. You can't give Mahomes a minute 30 and expect to win.
Yeah.
But I think the Chiefs will end up being the number 1 seed.
Okay.
So I'm gonna start with the AFC because that's where I have that's the way I have it in my notes. Right now, the two outliers are the Ravens and the Dolphins. I pretty much am in agreement with everything Nate said. Is for me the only team I don't trust that's in the playoffs right now is the Browns. I think they're playing good, but the Dolphins' schedule could help them a lot. They got some pretty easy games coming up. And if any of those teams that are in the playoffs right now, I don't see Raiders coming down. I could see the Raiders being a 5th seed by the end of this because they're not beating the Chiefs for the. But Browns, Titans could both fall from grace, and Miami could catch fire. I don't see the Ravens being the 3rd team. Does that make sense behind Cleveland? If Cleveland falls, sure, the Ravens could move up. But I have more faith in the Dolphins right now. They're playing more like a team. So my AFC stays the same. But if you held a gun to my head, I have the Dolphins replacing the Browns. That's what I said. That's the only change I have. Steelers, Chiefs, they could flip-flop. I still don't truly 100% believe in the Steelers. Okay. No offense. I know they're 10-0. I understand that. That's no reason of disrespect. I don't hate them. Nothing against them. They've had a very easy schedule, and some of their games have been very close, even against really bad teams. They only won by 3 against Dallas. Think about that. So it doesn't mean you're not good. I'm just saying, if anything, I could see the Chiefs getting that number 1 seed. Steelers still doing fine, but they're just not as good. I don't think they're a perfect 10-0 team. That's all.
Okay. But you're saying that they're not playing good teams, but they beat Tennessee, who's in the playoff picture. They beat Baltimore, who's in the playoff hunt. They beat Cleveland. I mean, they're beating playoff teams, and you can only play who's on your schedule.
Oh, I know. No.
You keep winning.
No, I understand that. You can only play what's on your schedule. I know what you're saying there. It's the fact that a lot of their wins, though, are coming from teams with 2 wins, with 7 losses. They played the NFC East. I can't remember one of the other. Who did they play? They played the Bengals. Twice now? Once. So they haven't played them again. So they're going to be playing them again. So I'm not saying they're benefiting off an easy schedule, but it's the fact of they beat the Ravens. Ravens have been defunct this year. Titans, they were high. Titans have fell from graces now. I still think they're a great team. I still think they have a chance to win the Super Bowl. I'm just saying I just don't think that they're going to stay 10-0 and go completely undefeated, and the Chiefs will take over.
Okay. What? It's kind of funny that you said that you think they can make the Super Bowl, but yet you're just poo-pooed on them for 2 straight minutes saying their schedule and they're fake.
No, I didn't say. When did I say they were fake, Mark? No, I didn't.
You said they were fraudulent.
I never said fraudulent.
Nate?
Mark, I did not. I've never used the word fraudulent on this podcast.
Okay.
Ever. What I said was they're 10-0, and I don't think they're a great 10-0 team. That's not fraudulent, Mark.
Okay.
What I'm saying is a lot of the games they're playing against Ravens and Dallas and these other bad teams, they're almost losing to in the 4th quarter. You're not blowing teams out of the water.
But this isn't college. You don't blow bad teams out of the water.
But if you want to be a real 10-0 team and you want to make people think you're really good, you need to be beating people a little bit better than they are. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. All right. I highly disagree because to be a real 10-0 team, you have to be 10-0.
I understand that.
So that is a real 10-0 team.
Okay.
And so I don't know. We'll move on. I'll let you go.
So let me ask you this then.
Okay.
Before I go on to my next topic. Cleveland's 7-3? Mm-hmm. Do you think they're real? Or do you think they're benefiting off playing the NFC East?
No, I don't think you can't say they're benefiting off playing the NFC. They're playing the schedule that they have to. So you have to win every game.
Yes.
And just because you Pittsburgh beats a Dallas team and you have a bad game, but you still win, that doesn't mean you're not a good 10-0 team.
What I'm saying is with them being 10-0 and they get to the playoffs and play teams that also have 10, 13, 14 wins, I don't think they're going to play as good against, is what I'm trying to tell you.
But I still think they win.
Yes, I never said they weren't going to win. I'm saying, if you had my opinion, I don't think they're going to be the number one seed, and I think they're going to get to the playoffs and play real teams. I think they're going to play hard teams in the playoffs. That's what I'm saying. They're playing a lot of teams that aren't very good right now.
Right, but to Nate's point, there's 7 teams in the playoffs right now. Mm-hmm. Okay, there's 9 teams battling for it. They've already beaten 4 out of the 9.
I understand that.
So they're playing these teams that they're going to play.
I understand. They have a chance to play any of these teams again, and any of these teams can beat them again.
They play Indianapolis soon, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the second to last game of the season or something like that. So my thing is they've already beaten these teams, and so it's like they were already playing the good teams and still beating them. So I just feel like Pittsburgh's not getting any love for some reason. And
I told you Steelers were my dark horse all year to make the playoffs. I did that in the preseason. I have nothing against them. I'm not saying they're a bad team. What I'm saying is they're beating bad teams. That's the difference. They have a couple good wins, but their strength of schedule this year is like 4th in the league. So they're beating good teams right now, so I need to see you beat. I need to see you play the Chiefs. I need to see you play the Bills. I need to see you play the Colts. These teams that are but just as good as you, I need to see what you can do against them. Teams that we're considering good teams as well.
Okay, Nate, that's my thing. You said something. I didn't catch what you said.
But I was just saying, who's Kansas City beating? Because, you're talking about Pittsburgh, so if they're not as good as their record states, is what you're trying to say. Is Kansas City better than what their record is because they have a loss? It's just Kansas City's not really. They have the Chargers and the Broncos in their division. They played the Jets.
I said this last week because Logan wanted to talk about it, because I think Logan said that the Steelers aren't a very good 10-0 team too, and the Chiefs are much better. Their strength of schedule is the same exact thing, and the Steelers have. And I did the point differential. I did all that stuff. It's the same exact thing. So, but everybody's so high on the Chiefs.
Well, I didn't never mention the Chiefs yet. The Chiefs have a very easy schedule too, and I think they're not playing as well as they were last year. That's me. I think they've come down a little bit. But what I'm trying to tell you is I think
But you just said they were winning the winning. They're going to be the number 1 seed.
I think they will be the number 1 seed. I think the Steelers are going to lose between now and then, and I think the Chiefs will take over. But I think both of them are playing easier schedules than they did last year.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to say. I think the Steelers will have another loss or 2 before the playoffs start.
Okay.
So that's my whole point was Chiefs are going to finish first, Steelers are going to finish second. I'm not saying the Steelers are going to lose 6 games straight and be nobodies. They're good. I just want to see a little bit more. That's not me hating on the team.
Okay.
All right. I picked them as my dark horse in the preseason, so everybody remembers that. In the NFC, the only change I have it exactly like it is. These teams could move around a little bit just by their win-losses, but other than probably the 4th seed, it's whoever wins NFC East. And again, we're going to talk about it, but it's so hard to pick one because every team is so bad. And every team is bad in their own category, whether it's health, whether it's coaching, whether it's missing a running back, or whether it's not knowing who your quarterback is. Every team has something wrong with them, and I don't know who figures it out first. That's all it is.
Okay.
So, but the NFC, I think both these AFC, I think the whole playoff bracket on both sides, I don't think it changes much. Okay. I think we pretty much got our teams here.
All right. And speaking of the NFC East, so this morning I went in and I wrote down every single remaining team that each NFC East team plays. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then I ranked in strength of schedule. All right. So I've got Philly and the Giants playing the hardest schedule. And then I've got Dallas and Washington playing the easiest. And I've got Dallas easily playing the easiest schedule out of those two. I think both teams get lucky that the 49ers are hurt. The Cowboys play Washington, Eagles, and Giants, and the Bengals. It breaks my heart to say this, but the Bengals...
not without Burrow.
You're not winning another game this season, I don't believe.
Which
helps the Giants this week. I think whoever wins this game today wins the NFC East.
Philly's got a rough schedule.
Yeah, Philly... I'm writing Philly off because they've got the Seahawks, Packers, Saints, Cards, Those are their next 4 games
in a row.
And then you have the Cowboys and Washington. So I think you're out of it in those 4 games, and then the 2 division games at the end don't matter.
And and then you have
the Giants have the Bengals, Seahawks, Cards, Browns, Ravens, Cowboys. That you're not going to win all. You're not. You have to win 3-4 games, I feel, in order to make the playoffs. Washington, to me, though, and this is, it's going to be weird to say, but Washington to me is the team that knows who they are the most.
Yes.
And I think, I love Alex Smith. I really do. And he's made a couple key mistakes in his starts, but he took advantage of a Bengals team last week that was deflated for 2 straight drives. He took advantage of it, and he drove down the field, and he got it. Now, we had a little argument, me, Nate, and Logan. It wasn't even an argument. I didn't even respond because technically they weren't wrong in their prediction of if Burrow didn't get hurt, who was going to win the game. I said the Bengals by 3. Said it was going to be a close game. Nate and Logan both said, no, the tide of the game was turning. The Bengals weren't moving the ball. Alex Smith would have driven down a couple times, and we would have won by 3. Both had good arguments. And I didn't see arguing back and forth when technically, I could see that scenario. It breaks my heart that Burrow got hurt.
Yeah, it's upsetting. Nobody wanted to see that.
But I believe more in Washington than I do in Dallas.
Yep.
Because I've seen Dalton play for 10-plus years, and he's never won a big game.
Yeah.
And never in his life. And Alex Smith has. To get to the playoffs. He's never really made noise in the playoffs. But Philly and Giants, I think, are outside looking in for that division. I think the Giants are technically the wild card in this whole scenario because every once in a while they play a game and you're like, if you see that, they're going to win the division. And it was, but it's just like Dallas playing against Minnesota last week. If they play like that, they're going to win the division. And then you have Washington, who has the best defense in the division.
Yeah.
And Gibson is figuring it out. McKissick, they're figuring it out. And then Alex Smith is hitting wide receivers other than Scary Terry.
Yep.
So I like Washington the most. But I'm going to stick with my gut and say whoever wins today wins the division. So whoever it is, that's who I'm sticking with. My gut says Washington wins tonight, but I don't have. It's not 100% conviction on that. Yeah. But they're the 2 best teams in the division, and they're both less hurt. Technically, because I believe in Dalton more than I believe in Jones, and I believe in Dalton more than I believe in Wentz right now.
The benefit is like I'll let Nate go in a second, is that Washington honestly doesn't have a whole lot of IR players. They're actually pretty decent health from what I was reading, and that's really helping them a lot. And Alex Smith is doing well.
Yeah, I mean, this man is it's going to sound so stupid saying this, but he's a professional quarterback.
Yeah.
No matter where he goes, he makes his teams better.
Yeah.
And before he got hurt, that team was on a roll. I can't remember, Nate, you'll have to tell me. I can't remember what their ranking was before he got hurt, but I want to say they were. What was that?
We were 6-2. We were 6-2 playing the Texans, and one possession game when J.J. Watt broke Alex Smith's leg, and we still lost that game by only 1 possession. But the way our schedule was lining up, we probably would have finished that season 11-5.
So I mean, and that's why I like when I say he's a professional quarterback. He makes everybody around him better, and he makes wide receivers relevant. And the wide receivers that are on that team, besides Scary Terry, weren't relevant, and now they are. Like it's I'm gonna say his name wrong. Mims. Is it Mims? Sims. You got Sims, and there's another kid in there that's been catching the ball really well. And you got McKissick and Gibson playing really well. Gibson is playing really well. And that offensive line is playing better, and the defense is playing much better. So it's going to be an interesting going down the stretch, but it's going to be between Dallas and Washington.
Go ahead, Nate.
Yeah, I mean, I have something I want to talk about before I get too far into this, and it's a question I want to ask you guys. Because I was talking to my brother about this. My wife and her family, as everybody knows, are diehard Philadelphia Eagles fans. And Christian and I had the podcast at the beginning of the season where we like this, in my opinion, where you have somebody who is arguably a top 5 quarterback, definitely a top 10 quarterback, just completely shut down. And I went back through the Carson Wentz timeline as I was talking to my brother about this, and I want to get y'all's opinion. So Carson Wentz is having an MVP caliber season. The team that he's playing with is 11-2. They're dominating everybody. He tears his ACL, stays in the game, scores a touchdown anyways, but is done for the season. And then he has to watch his backup go out and beat the GOAT of all time and win a Super Bowl ring. So yes, Carson Wentz got him there, but does he feel bad that he didn't win that Super Bowl? And then you come back and you do what you did last year and will a team with nobody your starting wide receiver as a college quarterback, wills the team to the playoffs, get exited early from the playoffs because of a cheap shot by Jadeveon Clowney, and they barely lose to Seattle with that roster that they had. And then you draft a quarterback in the second round. I think Philly has just mismanaged Wentz, and I think that he's so deflated and defeated because he's had all of this stuff happen around him. I mean, what do you guys think about that? Like, does that make sense to you guys? Or
No, I mean, I don't disagree with that.
I think he needs to change the scenery, to be completely honest with you.
I do too. That team's going to end up making his career 10 years shorter than it's supposed to be.
But I think it's scary to see because if he gets cut, he's not tradable because of the contract.
No.
He'll get picked up if he gets cut, but the Eagles have to eat so much of that money. Like, Philadelphia is in a weird position right here.
Yep.
And it's either sort of what we talked about with Dallas last week, where we talked about the trade of Zeke and eating the money and all that. If Philly is in, which I think they have to be in desperate rebuild mode, you move on from Wentz and you get what you can for him, or you let him go and you just see what you have in Jalen Hurts.
I think he'd have more potential if he wasn't in Philly. He's had so many years of getting beat up behind that line. It's just, I think he is a good quarterback. We had that discussion at the beginning of the year. I think he's a good quarterback, but he's not benefiting off what's around him. They're not playing well for him. It's just not working for him. And watching him play there is very sad. I do think he has a great potential to play better somewhere else. That's just me.
Now,
I don't disagree with anything Nate said about that, though.
So, Nate, let me ask you a question. Have you asked Haley's parents and her how they feel about it? Are they team Wentz, or they say move on?
They don't want to move on. They all like Wentz. They love his potential. They think that this is just a bad season. And, I mean, this is the beauty about 2020, if there ever is one, is anything that goes wrong, you can just blame it on 2020. You know, you can blame it on this. It's, COVID has become such a safety blanket for excuses. I think that they all don't want to move on. They just think that it's a bad season. What her dad said the most is they need a new offensive coordinator. Their scheme is the same thing that they were running when they won the Super Bowl. They figured out. Everybody knows when they line up like this where they're trying to go.
Right.
You can see how frustrated Carson Wentz is when he's trying to look for somebody open, but the team already knows their play.
Yeah.
It's sad to see what happened to Carson Wentz, and that's coming from a Washington football team fan. But in the NFC East as a whole, I think you said it perfectly, Mark. The Eagles and Giants schedule just doesn't dictate many more wins. And I genuinely think that if Dallas or Washington goes on a run, the winner of this division isn't going to be 5-11 or 6-10. I think that they could be 7-9. And I don't want to sound like a homer, but I just don't trust Dallas. I mean, Andy Dalton is one guy one week and completely different the next. And we saw how frustrated Dallas was playing us the first time he played. I think Washington's going to win tonight, and I genuinely do think they're going to win the division. And I had this conversation with someone else, too, because it's so frustrating about this division. They all suck, but there's so much promise in some of these teams. And Washington's definitely one of those teams when you look at all the young talent. It's just so frustrating because people are saying, I'd rather just have a top 5 pick. I'd rather have a top 5 pick. Because the winner of the division can't pick any better, even if their record is 5-11, any better than 19. Because that's where they fall through the playoffs.
Right.
So I would much rather win a division at 6-10 or 5-11 than picked in the top 5 again. I mean, I'd rather win and have a chance. So
Yeah.
but I think Washington's going to win the division.
So, obviously, it's going to make me sound like a homer, but Nate's not wrong. Whoever wins this game, neither of you, is probably going to win the division. But here's the problem I have, and I'm looking at Mark's chart because I didn't write this down. No. You can keep it like that.
Okay.
I'm used to it upside down now. The problem is that it's not the way you have it written, but Dallas plays Washington, Ravens, Bengals, 49ers, Eagles, Giants. So out of those teams, Washington, Eagles, Giants is our NFC East. 49ers are banged up. Bengals don't have Burrow, and the Ravens are probably the better of the two teams between them and the 49ers, right? Mm-hmm. So you have two pretty hard teams. But I'm looking at it like this. The Washington has to play the Cowboys, then the Steelers, then the 49ers, then the Seahawks, then the Panthers. The Panthers are playing decently well right now. They're playing scrappy. They play the Seahawks, so they're going to get lots of passing yards on them. I know Washington's got a good defense. I'm looking forward to the Washington-Seahawks game. Washington versus Seahawks. But I'm looking at the strength of the schedule, and I'm just looking at it here saying even if Dallas was somehow to lose, Washington has a tough schedule still. It is easy like Dallas's, but we don't play the Steelers again, and we don't play the Seahawks again or the Panthers. So I'm looking at the strength of schedule here saying Dallas has a chance to win this by default because we have to play 3 of the NFC East teams again, and we have the Bengals. So I think Dallas is going to have a tough game tonight, and I picked Dallas to win this game. But I wouldn't be surprised if Washington wins it and somehow Dallas finds a way with that schedule that looks, in my opinion, easier than what Washington has to do. That's just me. It does.
Yeah, I can't disagree, but I look at both teams. Whoever wins tonight going 4-2 the rest of the way.
So you have Washington only losing to Steelers and Seahawks?
Yes.
You think okay.
And I have it. But I also have the Cowboys losing to the Ravens, and I think you lose one of your last 3.
That's understandable.
So both teams go 4-2, which makes it so Nate's right 7-9.
Yeah, it's all about who wins this head-to-head tonight.
Yes,
and I don't disagree with anything you guys said about Washington. Washington's the better team right now. They're playing better. They know who their identity is. I know this is surprising coming from me, but they do play like the better full package team, right? Mm-hmm. They're scrappy. They play well. They know who their number 1 wide receiver is. They know who their defense is. But there's just something that tells me the strength of schedule, and I hate strength of schedule. But it plays out in a way that when you have a much easier strength of schedule, it's almost by default. But I think it's going to come down to who wins tonight. And I think if Washington wins tonight, it's their division because they're going to have the head-to-head. And I bet you both teams could finish the same record, both 7-9 in a way, or both a 6-10.
Okay.
But I think the head-to-head will be because Washington beat us twice. Okay. So this game is the most important game on both teams' schedules.
Yeah.
The way Dallas played Vikings to Minnesota, if that team shows up, that means every team coming ahead of us they're not playing as hot as the Vikings were.
Right.
So if we can play it just depends on what Dallas team shows up. You know what you're getting with Washington.
Yeah.
What Dallas team's going to show up, and it's aggravating every week because it's not the same team.
Right.
So if I had a gun to my head right now, I think Washington could win this division. I think they're probably going to, but my gut, like I said, still wants me to pick Dallas because of our strength of schedule.
Okay. I don't think. Realistically, I don't think any one of us is wrong on that.
No.
Realistically, I don't think you'd be surprised.
I will agree with you, too. I think Philly and the Giants are out.
Yes.
I think it's going to come between Washington and Dallas, and I think tonight's the first step to say that.
To be completely honest, I don't see Philly. I could see Philly losing out.
I could, too.
They are
Seahawks,
that dysfunctional.
Packers, Saints, Cards, Cowboys, Washington. They could beat one of us, too, at the end, but...
And I could see if you lose the next 3, if you're the Eagles... I could see a scenario where Carson Wentz all of a sudden has tendinitis and Jalen Hurts starts the last 3 games.
Yeah.
It's
kind of like the nagging shoulder of Christian McCaffrey for the rest of the year.
Yep. But we are running long, so we're not going to talk about the Hall of Fame. But I do want to just piggyback on. It's funny because the NFC East is trash. Yeah. We all agree. Am I harsh on that?
Yeah.
No.
This year they're trash.
Yeah, this year they're trash. There's a lot of scenarios why they're trash. I think if every team was healthy, it'd be a little better.
But coming down the stretch, this is the most exciting division besides the NFC West.
Yeah.
Because this decides, and realistically, if both teams go 4-2 down the stretch, what team at the top of the NFC? Do you really want to play a team that's been playing playoff football for the last 6 weeks of the season?
No.
And that's what Carolina did.
He was successful last year.
Right, but remember, Nate mentioned a while ago Carolina going 7-9 and beating I think they were the number 1 seed or the number 2 seed in Seattle, going in there and winning, and then almost winning again the next week.
And as of how the playoffs stand right now, if Dallas or Washington wins it, they'll probably be opening up against the Seahawks in the first round. I mean, they'll play the
top division winner. No, they'll play the top wild card.
Because we'll be fourth, and that's the Seahawks right now. They're fifth.
Okay,
they're the fifth seed because the Rams have, I guess, the head.
Yeah. So right I could see that scenario where you can go into Seattle and you can win that game
because they don't have defense.
I really don't think Seattle's as good as
I think Seattle in the playoffs would not want to see Washington. No, because I think their defense is.
I don't want to see Washington play Seattle in the playoffs. We have terrible luck with them every time.
Yeah, but
I think you guys can slow them down on offense.
Yeah, but if you're Tampa Bay,
we're going to see that in a couple weeks.
Yeah, you're going to see that in a few weeks. So
yeah, and it's just and it's just an interesting thing to talk about, like where you have like the NFC West going to beat each other up to get into the playoffs. Okay, and then you have Dallas and Washington, technically, like you both said, playing an easy schedule, but still playing playoff football and gearing up and ready to go. And
yeah.
I just find it interesting.
And Washington's clicking, and Dallas is getting healthy. They're getting players back. So those two things together between these two teams, they have the chance. Philly is getting healthier, but that schedule's atrocious. The Giants don't know who they are. I'm telling you, Washington, to me, and I keep saying it, is the most complete team in this division. I trust them to play. Like, if Washington plays, I know they have close wins, but if I was a Washington fan, I watch them play, I'd be like, I'm pretty confident going into every game on their schedule. I'm confident. Dallas, I get nervous every week because you don't know what Dallas shows up. But with Washington, you know who's going to show up. It could be a quarterback fault. It could be a kicking problem. But you kind of know who they are right now.
But I find it kind of hilarious that you either have, say technically a top 8 pick in the draft, or you have 19th.
Yeah.
It's so...
It's ridiculous.
It's hilarious to me. But at the same time, again, with Nate's point, I'd rather make the playoffs as a young team than miss the playoffs. And that's where I think it doesn't matter what your record is going into the playoffs. You're not getting a top 5 pick with this remaining schedule.
No matter what.
So you're going to fall to top 10, which is still a very good player, or you're going to be 19th.
And still get decent talent there too.
I think it's going to be interesting coming down the stretch. And again, I think there's a lot of worry right now in Baltimore. I hear it on the radio station. I hear it in Baltimore fans. They almost it's so much fun to listen to, though, because as a Bengals fan, I hate the Ravens. And it's a lot of fun to listen to how defeated they are and how they're really reevaluating their talent. And it's fun for me. So for me, you guys, you have a great Thanksgiving.
Does Nate, Nate got anything else to say?
I was just going to ask him, but I know you're down in Florida, Nate, enjoying some good weather, I hope. But you have anything left to say?
Yeah, man, Florida is always nice to be in when it's cold up north. But I just want to say Alex Smith is already the comeback player of the year. If he makes the playoffs or pushes this team in that direction, I don't think I've ever seen something more moving and just inspirational than what we're watching from Alex Smith. And I think we should name the comeback player of the year award after him moving forward. That's not even me being a homer. That's just me being a football fan and watching this guy's whole career and seeing how hard he works to get back to this. It's absolutely incredible. But thank you guys for having 100%. Me on, and happy Thanksgiving, man.
All right, it's been a pleasure, man.
Yeah,
you enjoy. Awesome. Tell your family happy Thanksgiving, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, same to you guys. Talk to you.
All right, bye.
So that was Nate once again. We love having him on. I think other than that, I think we're ready to watch some football. Yeah. Unfortunately, we only got 2 games now, but I'll be
sleeping by the 3rd time, so it's fine for me.
I'm totally looking forward to this Washington game, this Washington-Dallas game. This is going to be a good game. Whether people are fans of either team, they're going to play hard. They always play hard. Let's just hope Dallas pulls out that W.
Yep.
But other than that, Mark, happy Thanksgiving to everybody who hears this. You'll be hearing this on Friday, so obviously it won't be Thanksgiving no more, but I hope everybody stayed safe, ate lots of turkey, and threw all the cranberry sauce in the trash can.
I'm the same way when it comes to green bean casserole, whatever that crap. It's so gross.
So good.
So gross.
All right, man. Other than that, everybody have a good night.
Have a good week.
See you guys.
Bye.